Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. El-Fasher crisis escalates with RSF control. Humanitarian disaster and war crimes allegations emerge. Israeli-Hamas hostage exchange occurs. Ongoing developments and related issues are present. Trump and Takaichi form alliance. Political and economic factors are driving the move. U.S. diversifies rare earth supply. China's dominance is a key concern. Trump's lame duck strategy continues. Ambitions and strategic maneuvering are evident. Trump's global power is uncertain. The landscape remains complex and evolving. Orban faces balancing act. Russia and the U.S. exert pressure. Mali's victory spurs Argentine market growth. U.S. support fuels the surge. Ford's ad triggers trade war concerns. The advertising campaign has sparked controversy. Cameroon's Biya remains in power. The eighth term is marked by controversy. U.S. military action targets drug trafficking. Congressional briefings are underway. OpenAI raises mental health concerns. ChatGPT developments alongside other AI projects. Amazon announces job reductions. AI investment is driving the cuts. Hurricane Melissa threatens Jamaica and Cuba. The storm intensifies to Category 5. UK secures Diversifies typhoon deal with Turkey. The agreement highlights strategic partnerships. El-Fasher crisis deepens. RSF control sparks humanitarian catastrophe and allegations of war crimes. The situation in El-Fasher, Sudan has dramatically deteriorated with the rapid support forces, RSF gaining control of the city, triggering a severe humanitarian crisis and mounting accusations of war crimes. For over 2 years, Sudan has been embroiled in civil conflict, and the fall of El-Fasher represents a critical escalation, trapping hundreds of thousands of civilians and exacerbating a pre-existing hunger crisis. The RSF, despite denying accusations of targeting civilians and ethnic groups, faces mounting evidence, including satellite imagery analyzed by Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab, depicting piles of bodies executed en masse, and apparent pools of blood. The UN and international organizations are horrified by reports of summary executions, attacks on civilians attempting to escape, and widespread sexual violence. The Joint Force, an alliance of Darfuri armed groups, reports 2,000 civilian deaths since the city's capture, a figure lacking independent verification. Communication lines have been severed, leaving residents fearful and unable to contact relatives still trapped within the besieged city. One resident described witnessing the massacre of his family, unable to ascertain their fate due to the lack of communication. The humanitarian toll is immense, with the only functioning hospital in El-Fasher subjected to an attack, resulting in the death of a nurse. Sudanese military chief Gen Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has vowed to continue fighting until the RSF's atrocities are halted, while the European Union and the African Union have condemned the alleged war crimes. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres expressed grave concern and condemned violations of international humanitarian law. The RSF's prolonged siege of El-Fasher, lasting 18 months, has created a dire situation with potentially devastating consequences for the civilian population, highlighting the urgent need for a resolution to the ongoing conflict. The international community's response remains crucial in addressing the escalating crisis and preventing further atrocities. Israeli-Hamas hostage exchange and associated developments. Recent developments center around the ongoing exchange of hostages held by Hamas and Israeli actions in Gaza. A key issue involves the return of remains, with Israel asserting that a coffin handed over by Hamas did not contain the body of another deceased hostage, identifying the remains as belonging to Ofir Tarzarfati, a hostage recovered 2 years prior. This claim was met with denial from Hamas, accusing Israel of fabricating pretexts to justify aggressive actions and hindering the entry of machinery needed to locate remaining bodies. The Red Cross was involved in the transfer of a deceased hostage's body, further complicating the situation. Simultaneously, Eviatar David, an Israeli hostage forced to dig his own grave in a Gaza tunnel, is reportedly growing back to his old self, according to his father. David was released as part of the initial ceasefire deal, having endured a harrowing captivity marked by starvation and deprivation, as documented in a Hamas-released video. Medical professionals at Rabin Medical Center noted that while David's body bears the visible marks of his ordeal, he is recovering. Under the terms of the ceasefire, Israel has released 250 Palestinian prisoners and 718 detainees from Gaza, in exchange for the return of 15 bodies of Palestinians for every Israeli hostage's remains. 13 of the deceased were Israeli citizens, one was Nepalese, and another was Thai. The IDF launched a military campaign in Gaza in response to the 7 October 2023 Hamas attack, resulting in over 68,000 Palestinian deaths according to the Hamas-run health ministry, a figure disputed by the UN. The exchange continues with 19 living hostages released and 15 deceased bodies returned. The situation remains highly complex and fraught with accusations and counter-accusations regarding the handling of remains and the overall progress of the ceasefire. The psychological impact on the released hostages, particularly David, is also a significant focus, with medical teams observing his recovery and acknowledging the lasting trauma of his captivity. Trump and Takaichi forge alliance amidst political and economic considerations. Donald Trump concluded his Asia leg with a series of meetings focused on strengthening the U.S.-Japan alliance and addressing key economic and security concerns. The visit, a critical early test for newly elected Prime Minister Takaichi, centered on solidifying a relationship with the unpredictable U.S. president. The meetings highlighted a strategic partnership built on shared interests, including defense cooperation, economic trade, and diplomatic support. A significant element of the visit involves securing a renewed commitment to the 15% tariff deal on rare earth minerals, alongside a pledge for a golden age of U.S.-Japan relations. Trump's insistence on Japanese purchases of U.S. rice and beef remained a prominent feature, alongside advocating for broader market access for U.S. vehicles and soybeans. He announced the first delivery of long-awaited U.S. missiles for F-35 fighter jets to Japan, a move intended to bolster Japan's defense capabilities. The visit to the U.S. George Washington, where Takaichi accompanied Trump, underscored the importance of the U.S.-Japan alliance, with Takaichi praising it as the greatest alliance in the world. Trump reciprocated, describing the relationship as a beautiful friendship, and announced his intention to nominate Takaichi for the Nobel Peace Prize. He also presented her with a collection of golf-related gifts, including items signed by Hideki Matsuyama and Shinzo Abe. Despite the positive tone, underlying tensions were evident. Japan's reluctance to increase defense spending, a long-standing criticism from Trump, remained a point of contention. Protests occurred in Tokyo, reflecting concerns about the potential impact of the alliance on Japan's foreign policy autonomy. The meetings concluded with a shared commitment to a new era, yet navigating the complexities of the relationship, particularly Trump's fluctuating commitment, represents a significant challenge for Japan's foreign policy. The planned investments by Japanese companies, particularly Toyota's $10 billion investment in U.S. plants, further demonstrate the potential for mutually beneficial economic cooperation. U.S. efforts diversify rare earth supply amid China's dominance. The United States is actively pursuing strategies to reduce its reliance on China's control over rare earth minerals, a critical sector dominated by Beijing's mining and processing capabilities. Recent agreements with Malaysia, Thailand, and Australia represent a significant shift in the global supply chain, aiming to diversify sourcing and bolster domestic manufacturing capabilities. These initiatives, spearheaded by President Donald Trump, are driven by concerns over China's leverage during the ongoing trade war and the vulnerability of global supply chains. The core of the strategy involves establishing new mining and processing facilities outside of China, a costly and time-consuming endeavor. While the Australia deal, valued at $8.5 billion, was secured earlier, agreements with Malaysia and Thailand are viewed as potentially quicker wins. Malaysia's existing processing capacity is particularly noteworthy, offering a faster pathway to supplying critical minerals to U.S. automotive, defense, and high-tech hardware manufacturers. China currently accounts for approximately 70% of global rare earth metal mining and 90% of processing output. Beijing's export controls, implemented as part of the trade war, have further intensified the need for alternative sourcing. The U.S. agreements are intended to increase bargaining power and reduce China's influence. The agreements involve promoting trade and investment in the exploration, extraction, processing, and refining of critical minerals. These efforts are aimed at building resilient supply chains and ensuring access to materials vital for U.S. industries. While the long-term success remains uncertain, the immediate goal is to mitigate potential disruptions and enhance the U.S.'s strategic autonomy. The agreements are being implemented during the 2025 Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit in Kuala Lumpur. Trump's lingering ambitions and the strategic use of lame duck. Recent news coverage centers on President Donald Trump's persistent, albeit unconventional, speculation regarding a potential third term in 2028, alongside the strategic implications of this persistent discussion. Despite constitutional limitations, Trump continues to entertain the possibility, fueled by his desire to avoid the lame duck status associated with a president nearing the end of their second term. This situation is further complicated by the involvement of key figures such as Steve Bannon, who has reportedly been involved in devising a plan to keep Trump in office. Trump's repeated comments, including his assertion of having the best numbers ever, and his ambiguous response to the idea of running as vice president, are not intended as a serious proposal, but rather a tactic to maintain relevance and influence. The core issue is the psychological impact of the lame duck phenomenon, the diminished power and political capital that a president faces as their time in office draws to a close. This dynamic is particularly pronounced during midterm elections, where the party in power typically loses seats. This is where Bannon's influence becomes critical, as he is actively attempting to keep Trump in the political conversation and prevent his allies from distancing themselves. Several individuals, including Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and figures within the MAGA media ecosystem, are already preparing for a post-Trump political landscape, exploring alternative directions for the movement. The potential for ideological divergence within the movement, whether leaning toward a more interventionist foreign policy, as suggested by Marco Rubio, or a more isolationist approach, as favored by J.D. Vance, is a significant factor. Furthermore, the potential for Trump to continue leveraging his influence through fear, his willingness to challenge institutions, and his supporters' willingness to accommodate him remains a concern. The looming question of how the Republican Party will react when Trump's power diminishes is a central theme. Ultimately, Trump's continued discussions about a third term are primarily a strategic maneuver to avoid the constraints of a lame duck presidency and to maintain control within his political sphere, despite the constitutional barriers. The conversation is fueled by a desire to prevent allies from distancing themselves and to shape the future of the Republican Party. Trump's shifting global power, a complex and uncertain landscape. Donald Trump's second term has demonstrably reshaped global dynamics, marked by a surge in international influence, despite ongoing criticisms and strategic inconsistencies. His approach, characterized by unpredictable actions and a disregard for established norms, has fostered a complex power landscape. Trump's foreign policy successes include brokering a truce between Thailand and Cambodia, securing a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, and fostering trade agreements with Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. However, these achievements are intertwined with significant challenges and uncertainties. Trump's strategy centers on cultivating deference from world leaders, exemplified by lavish summits and displays of power. He's adept at summoning global attention, though this is largely driven by optics rather than sustained strategic advantage. His actions, such as the assassination attempt on Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani, while generating immediate impact, reveal a willingness to operate outside conventional diplomatic channels. Despite his influence, Trump's approach is fraught with complications. His trade policies, including tariffs on Chinese goods and soybeans, have created tensions and exposed vulnerabilities. The use of soft power has waned as America First policies have disrupted long-standing alliances. Canada, for instance, is distancing itself from the U.S. due to trade disputes. The dynamics with China are particularly significant. President Xi Jinping, a more measured and long-term strategist, represents a formidable counterweight. The two leaders share similarities in their self-proclaimed strongman roles and their efforts to concentrate power. While Trump has secured temporary agreements, such as a truce regarding rare earth minerals, China retains considerable leverage. Furthermore, Trump's actions are increasingly viewed as driven by personal ambition rather than strategic foresight. The potential for hubris and the blurring of lines between personal gain and national interest are growing concerns. The shifting geopolitical landscape highlights the inherent instability of Trump's approach and suggests that his influence, while currently pronounced, may be fleeting. The long-term implications for global trade, alliances, and international security remain highly uncertain, with China poised to maintain its ascendancy. Orban's dilemma balancing Russian oil and U.S. pressure. Of Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, finds himself in a precarious position, attempting to navigate the complexities of U.S. pressure regarding Russian oil while simultaneously pursuing a strategy that aligns with Russian interests and his own political agenda. The core of the issue revolves around Hungary's heavy reliance on Russian oil supplied through the Druzhba pipeline, accounting for 80% of its supply by 2024. This dependence has fueled tensions with the United States, who have imposed sanctions on Russian oil companies Lukoil and Rosneft, pushing for a rapid reduction in Hungary's reliance on Russian energy. Orban's strategy involves leveraging his relationship with Donald Trump, who he views as a great leader and a potential counterweight to Western pressure. He hopes to persuade Trump to ease the pressure on Hungary until a resolution regarding the war in Ukraine is reached. Orban has consistently opposed Western military and financial aid to Ukraine and has ruled out Ukraine's NATO and EU membership, portraying Trump as a pro-peace president. The attempted summit in Budapest between Trump and Putin, initially planned to facilitate a shift away from Russian oil, was ultimately cancelled due to White House concerns. Orban, however, remains optimistic about the summit's eventual occurrence, echoing similar sentiments from Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. The Czech Republic serves as a contrasting example, having successfully transitioned away from Russian oil by investing in infrastructure improvements and adapting its refineries to process Brent crude. This success highlights the feasibility of reducing reliance on Russian energy. Hungary's argument that its landlocked status prevents a swift transition is undermined by the Czech example. Under U.S. pressure, Hungary is facing a critical decision regarding its energy future, with the potential for a significant shift in its relationship with both the U.S. and Russia. The situation is further complicated by logistical challenges, including the composition of Russian Urals crude and disputes over pipeline capacity between Moel and Janaf. The Hungarian government's ability to adapt and overcome these hurdles will be crucial in determining its long-term energy security and political standing. Milei's victory fuels Argentine market surge. Bolstered by U.S. support, President Javier Milei's decisive victory in Argentina's midterm legislative elections has triggered a dramatic surge in Argentine financial markets, fueled by a $20 billion U.S. currency swap and broader investor confidence. The win, securing Milei's La Libertad Avanza party a significant majority, effectively halts a recent slide in the Argentine peso and dramatically improves the outlook for the nation's economy. J.P. Morgan Chase economists highlighted Milei's commanding mandate, while U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent expressed confidence in his ability to foster economic freedom and attract investment. The victory is particularly significant due to the U.S. government's intervention, providing a crucial lifeline to the peso and signaling continued support for Milei's free market reforms. This intervention effectively neutralized concerns of a financial crisis and bolstered investor confidence, leading to a sharp repricing of Argentine assets. Milei's success also removes the threat of a Peronist-led reversal of his reforms, allowing him to pursue his agenda with greater certainty. Milei's approach, characterized by chainsaw government reform, slashing spending and implementing free market policies, was previously under scrutiny. His victory secures a majority in the lower house of Congress, preventing the opposition from overriding presidential vetoes. However, he still requires support from centrist and center-right lawmakers to pass legislation. The market reaction has been substantial, with the global XMSCI Argentina exchange-traded fund soaring 19%, its best day on record. Goldman Sachs' Alberto Ramos noted that the victory provides Milei with legitimacy and political capital, strengthening governability and the outlook for key reforms, alongside continued U.S. financial support. President Trump praised Milei's success, contingent on his political achievements. Despite the positive momentum, economists caution that challenges remain. The Argentine peso remains overvalued, and structural issues related to growth and employment persist. Securing fiscal measures to ensure sound fiscal policy is crucial. The market rally represents a temporary reprieve, not a resolution of Argentina's underlying economic problems. The outcome of Milei's 2027 re-election will be a key factor in the continued stability of the Argentine economy and the ongoing U.S. investment strategy. Ford's anti-tariff ad sparks trade war fallout. The recent release of an anti-tariff television advertisement by Ontario Premier Doug Ford has triggered a significant escalation in the trade dispute between Canada and the United States, with Donald Trump announcing a 10% tariff increase on Canadian goods, bringing the total tariff burden to over 35%. This action followed Trump's suspension of trade talks with Canada, citing the advertisement's content as fraudulent and accusing Canada of attempting to influence a crucial U.S. Supreme Court case regarding his existing tariffs. The ad, featuring excerpts from Ronald Reagan's 1987 address on foreign trade, has garnered over 1 billion views globally, including substantial attention in the UK and India. Despite the escalating tensions, Prime Minister Mark Carney remains optimistic about reaching a trade deal with the U.S., noting that term sheets were being exchanged before the advertisement's release. Carney emphasized the federal government's responsibility to lead trade negotiations. However, the Ford government remains steadfast in its opposition to Trump's tariffs, viewing the advertisement as a successful effort to raise awareness about the issue. Premier Ford defended the ad's impact, stating it has ignited conversations across North America and internationally. He declared his intention to never take a back seat to President Trump. Support for Ford's stance has emerged from several Canadian politicians, including Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown, who praised Ford's courage in confronting Trump's inconsistencies. Furthermore, British Columbia Premier David Eby has announced plans to launch a similar anti-tariff advertisement in his province next month, specifically targeting U.S. tariffs on lumber. The situation remains volatile, with ongoing negotiations seemingly stalled by the controversial advertisement. The core issue revolves around Trump's perception of the ad as an interference in legal proceedings, while Ford maintains it's a legitimate effort to challenge what he considers an unfair trade policy. Cameroon's Biya secures 8th term amidst controversy. Paul Biya, the world's oldest head of state at 92, has been declared the winner of Cameroon's presidential election, securing an 8th consecutive term. Despite a close race against Issat Karoma Bakary, Biya garnered 53.7% of the vote compared to Bakary's 35.2%, as announced by the Constitutional Council. The election was marred by widespread allegations of electoral malpractice and violent clashes between supporters of both candidates and security forces. Voter turnout reached 58%, but the official results were immediately disputed by Bakary and his supporters, who claimed victory. The election's contentious nature was characterized by significant unrest, particularly in major cities like Douala and Garoua, where protests erupted and security forces reportedly opened fire on demonstrators. These incidents resulted in multiple casualties, fueling further outrage and deepening the political crisis. The opposition accused the ruling Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM, of attempting to steal the election, while the government maintained that the results were legitimate. Several factors contributed to the controversy, including Biya's extended tenure, his infrequent public appearances, and concerns about the influence of figures like Ferdinand Ngo, the Secretary General of the Presidency. Bakary's candidacy, a former Biya ally, shifted the political landscape and garnered support across various regions, including the English-speaking Northwest and Southwest. Young Cameroonian citizens expressed deep skepticism about Biya's continued leadership, citing concerns about the country's economic decline, endemic corruption, and the lack of opportunities for young people. Many questioned Biya's ability to effectively govern, given his age and apparent detachment from daily realities. The election's outcome has raised serious questions about Cameroon's democratic processes and the future of its political system. The ongoing instability and violence underscore the deep divisions within the country and the urgent need for peaceful and inclusive solutions. The situation remains highly volatile, with the potential for further unrest and political instability. U.S. military strikes and congressional briefings on drug trafficking operations. Though the United States military has intensified its campaign against alleged drug trafficking operations in the eastern Pacific Ocean, conducting a series of lethal strikes against multiple vessels. As of Monday, 14 individuals have been killed and 3 survivors identified, marking 13 total strikes since September, resulting in the destruction of 14 boats. These operations, authorized by the Trump administration, involve targeting vessels identified as operating under a designated terrorist organization and carrying narcotics. Intelligence reports indicate the vessels were traversing known narco-trafficking routes. The administration has provided 7 classified briefings to Congress regarding these strikes, a number disputed by some lawmakers who claim the information is repetitive and lacks crucial details. Congressional skepticism is growing, with several members expressing concerns about the legality and transparency of the operations. Senator Mark Kelly stated that the evidence presented during briefings did not support the administration's claims. Furthermore, lawmakers are questioning the administration's justification for the strikes and the lack of clear answers regarding their legal basis. Despite the briefings, significant disagreements persist within Congress regarding the scope and legitimacy of the military's actions. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has voiced support for President Trump's potential authorization of broader military operations, including land strikes against Venezuela and Colombia, and confirmed a future congressional briefing on these potential expanded operations. The administration's approach, relying on a classified legal opinion, justifying the strikes as those of an enemy combatant, has raised significant legal and ethical questions. The ongoing disputes highlight a growing disconnect between the executive branch and Congress regarding the administration's use of military force, particularly in international waters. The situation is further complicated by the House of Representatives being in shutdown, preventing a formal hearing to address the concerns. OpenAI's ChatGPT data reveals mental health risks. Alongside Turing Institute and Grokipedia developments, recent developments highlight significant concerns regarding artificial intelligence's impact on mental health, alongside ongoing challenges for established online knowledge platforms. OpenAI has released data indicating that approximately 0.7% of ChatGPT users exhibit signs of psychosis, suicidal thoughts, or mania, representing a substantial number given the platform's 800 million weekly active users. This data prompted the establishment of a global network of mental health experts to advise OpenAI and implement responses within the chatbot. aiming to encourage users to seek professional help. Despite these efforts, concerns remain about the potential for AI to exacerbate mental health issues, particularly through the creation of illusions of reality, as highlighted by experts. OpenAI's actions are subject to legal scrutiny, including a lawsuit alleging the chatbot encouraged a teenager's suicide. Meanwhile, the Alan Turing Institute chair, Doug Gerr, has definitively denied accusations of a toxic internal culture and misuse of public funds, with independent investigations confirming no substance to the claims. Despite previous leadership departures and ongoing Charity Commission investigation, Gerr remains committed to the Institute's mission. Furthermore, Elon Musk's XAI is launching Grokipedia, a competing online encyclopedia, aiming to purge out propaganda from Wikipedia. Grokipedia, powered by AI, already boasts over 800,000 entries and is generating significant traffic. Musk's intention is to challenge Wikipedia's dominance, and the platform includes entries critical of Wikipedia's biases and uses, including its training data. Grokipedia's rise coincides with concerns about Wikipedia's declining traffic due to AI-generated summaries and increased scraping by AI companies. Wikipedia itself faces challenges, including increased traffic from AI-powered tools and ongoing scrutiny regarding its neutrality, particularly concerning conservative viewpoints. The Wikimedia Foundation is actively addressing these issues, focusing on mitigating bias and promoting academic research. OpenAI's data, the Turing Institute struggles, and Musk's disruptive Grokipedia collectively underscore the evolving landscape of information access and the urgent need to understand and manage the potential risks associated with increasingly sophisticated AI technologies. Amazon announces significant job cuts amid AI investment. Amazon is implementing substantial workforce reductions, primarily within its corporate division, as part of a strategic shift driven by the anticipated widespread adoption of artificial intelligence. The company has confirmed plans to eliminate approximately 14,000 roles, a move intended to streamline operations and align with CEO Andy Jassy's vision of transforming Amazon into a more agile, startup-like organization. This reduction represents roughly 4% of the company's total 350,000 corporate employees, according to a 2024 survey submitted to the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The layoffs are directly linked to Jassy's assessment that generative AI represents the most transformative technology we've seen since the internet, accelerating innovation and necessitating a leaner workforce. Senior Vice President of People Experience Beth Galletti emphasized the need for reduced layers and increased ownership to facilitate rapid adaptation to this technological shift. Employees impacted will receive a 90-day internal job search period, alongside severance pay and additional benefits for those unable to secure new positions within Amazon. This restructuring follows a previous 2023 layoff of 27,000 employees across various divisions, attributed to a deteriorating global economic outlook. The current cuts reflect a broader trend among technology companies, fueled by rising operating costs and a tightening market environment. Concerns are mounting that generative AI will displace human workers, particularly within the tech sector. Jassy has openly acknowledged the potential for reduced human capital as AI tools automate routine tasks. Experts suggest that Amazon's actions are a proactive measure to maintain profitability and competitiveness in a rapidly evolving landscape. The company's focus on AI investment is expected to reshape its workforce, prioritizing roles that complement and leverage the technology's capabilities. The situation mirrors broader anxieties regarding the future of work, with many anticipating significant shifts in employment patterns due to automation and technological advancements. The moves by Amazon are indicative of a larger trend where companies are prioritizing technological infrastructure over human capital. Hurricane Melissa poses an unprecedented threat to Jamaica and Cuba, rapidly intensifying into a Category 5 storm with sustained winds reaching 165 mph. The storm's projected landfall near New Hope, Jamaica, marks the strongest storm to impact the country, potentially surpassing the devastation of Hurricane Gilbert in 1988. Forecasts predict catastrophic conditions including up to 40 inches of rainfall, a 13-foot storm surge, and 160 mph sustained winds, leading to extensive infrastructure damage and potential community isolation. Authorities have issued mandatory evacuation orders for vulnerable coastal areas in Jamaica, urging residents to seek shelter and comply with safety protocols. Prime Minister Andrew Holness emphasized the nation's preparedness and resilience. The National Hurricane Center warns of extreme rapid intensification, with the storm doubling in strength over the weekend, fueled by warming ocean temperatures exacerbated by fossil fuel pollution. 3 fatalities have already been reported in Haiti, and 1 in the Dominican Republic due to torrential rainfall and flooding associated with the storm's passage. A 13-year-old is also missing after being swept away by strong currents. Eastern Cuba is now bracing for the storm's arrival after it passed over Jamaica, with thousands evacuated and warnings issued. The potential for extensive damage and disruption is high. The storm's unusually rapid intensification is raising concerns about the broader implications of climate change and its influence on extreme weather events. The situation is considered critical, with ongoing monitoring and warnings being disseminated to affected populations. The projected track includes a direct hit on Jamaica, followed by a passage over eastern Cuba, and then the southeastern Bahamas. The National Hurricane Center continues to provide updates and forecasts as the storm's trajectory and intensity evolve. The potential for significant disruption and loss of life remains substantial. UK signs Quad-Apian typhoon deal with Turkey. The United Kingdom has finalized a significant defense agreement, securing a contract to supply Turkey with 20 Typhoon fighter jets valued at up to $8 billion. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer oversaw the signing of the deal during a visit to Ankara on Monday, describing it as a pivotal moment and a strategic victory for the UK. This represents the largest fighter jet export agreement in nearly 2 decades, promising substantial economic benefits for both nations. The agreement is expected to bolster Turkey's air force and contribute to enhanced security within the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. The Typhoon jets, jointly produced by the UK, Germany, Italy, and Spain, will play a crucial role in safeguarding NATO's southeastern flank. Approximately 37% of each aircraft's production occurs in the UK, primarily at BAE Systems facilities in Wharton and Salisbury, Lancashire. This translates to a considerable boost for British manufacturing, supporting approximately 6,000 jobs at these sites. Furthermore, the deal extends to approximately 400 jobs across southwest England, including the Rolls-Royce plant in Bristol, and an additional 800 positions in Scotland. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan welcomed the agreement as a new symbol of the strategic relations between Turkey and Britain. The provision of these advanced fighter jets underscores a strengthened military partnership and reflects a commitment to collaborative defense strategies. The deal's success hinged on the approval of the other consortium nations, highlighting the importance of international cooperation within the defense sector. This landmark transaction is anticipated to generate sustained economic growth and job creation within the UK's aerospace industry for years to come, reinforcing Britain's position as a leading global defense supplier.